Hello there. Kia ora. Hey, look, I'm not in the office at the moment. I mean, I technically am. I'm doing this on a green screen to make it look like I'm somewhere else, but I am actually somewhere else. I'm touring around the country at the moment because it's summer and I need a little bit of a break, but I've got a special effects budget to spend. So I'm going to do what all good TV shows do in this case and set up a clip show with some older content just to rehash it and feed the algorithm. So feel free to sit down and reminisce or relive the horrors depending on which video it is, and hopefully you enjoy or at least don't get too depressed by it. And if you see me floating around, feel free to say hi. Recommend a good place for finding a bacon and egg pie. That's my mission, I think, for this particular journey, is to find the best bacon and egg pie in at least the North Island. We'll see what we can do on that one. Anyway, enjoy this particular piece of recycled content. I suppose it's good for the environment if I'm recycling this way. I don't know. Enjoy.
Hello there, kia ora. Does our Prime Minister suffer from CEO's disease, which isn't a real disease? It is a term that was coined by organizational psychologist Tasha Eurich, and it's basically the idea of being so self-delusional that you don't realize that you're going to be making mistakes or that you are making mistakes. It's kind of built up in a lot of CEOs and upper management people for a whole bunch of different organizations, because as you work your way up the corporate ladder and you start to get more and more authority, your colleagues become more and more afraid to disagree with you, and they start to filter what it is that they feed you in terms of information. But you don't realize that this is happening. So you end up with something called error blindness. Nobody wants to tell you when you make a mistake, so you don't like to know that you've made a mistake and you don't realize it, so you can't correct it, and you get really overconfident with what it is that you're saying. In some CEOs, for example, it can end up with an incident where you might be supplying terrorist organizations in Yemen that you're not aware of. According to the psychologists that did this research, there's essentially 3 steps for this. First, you're wrong, but you don't realize it because you fail to double check facts because you assume that you're right. And we saw that a number of times in the House over the last couple of days. Second, when you do finally realize that you're wrong, you feel under attack. And again, we saw that with his reactions having to come back into the House to make corrections, which he wasn't particularly pleased about. And then finally, you fortify yourselves in denial. You don't want to admit to others that you were wrong. And we see that come out in a whole bunch of different ways, like denial, or we misspoke. We are definitely doing this thing that I said we were doing all the way along, no matter what Mark Mitchell says. It's those kind of things. Occasionally, you'll get the odd thing thrown in to distract people, like announcing a 45-cent an hour increase in the minimum wage, which would give you $18 a week if you work a 40-hour week, which is well under the $45 a week average rent increase that we've seen over the last 12 months. So those kind of things, which are designed as distractions, fortify the fact that you are in denial and don't want to have to deal with those particular issues that were coming out. In fact, there's a whole bunch of media that's been coming out this week that kind of draws attention away a little bit from the Prime Minister. Well, that's kind of what they planned. But then you have stories like Casey Costello and her links to the tobacco industry and just how much she specifically requested tobacco industry talking points to become policy points, and the Prime Minister denying he has anything to do with it because it's another party, even though they're in the same government and she is one of his cabinet members. So that's what CEO's disease is. It's basically getting to a point where nobody will tell you that you're wrong or that you're screwing up. And when you're in a political party, particularly during a campaign, you end up surrounding yourself an awful lot with people who share the same ideologies and visions with you. It makes it really hard for people to point out to you that perhaps your viewpoint is wrong, or perhaps the information that you're being provided or are providing others is incorrect, because those people want you to succeed and they share your ideologies. But when you move from a corporate environment to a public environment, like Christopher Luxon does, you don't get to surround yourself all the time with those kind of people who are scared to tell you the truth. And what ends up happening is you go back to Parliament after a break and, well, you have a little bit of a bad start to everything. And people start to question whether or not you're actually up for the job, along with the rest of your government.